This game wants me to save humanity. I cannot get a boat to move forward. This is The Last Caretaker, where my only friend is a robot that keeps hitting the fence walk, and the creeping realization that the fate of humanity is essentially in the hands of, Grok AI. Through the power of weaponized incompetence, undiagnosed neurodivergency, and clicking literally every button under the sun, I am committing to the unreasonably optimistic goal of saving at least one person. I wake up as a newly activated caretaker unit in an abandoned facility. Powers out. Debris everywhere. The halls are lined with the bodies of other robots, and a disembodied AI voice politely suggests I fix things. The game is set on a surprisingly stunning oil rig, ignoring the mountains of dead robots, the evil squid things latched to half the doors, and the general state of disrepair. It reminds me of a slightly wetter Chernobyl exclusion zone. I occasionally get assaulted by corrupted robots. The rent is sky high. But man, look at those views. The first obstacle the game puts in front of me is actually my own brain. Trying to figure out optimal wiring strategies and electrical currents while jet-lagged and foggy was certainly a choice. In retrospect, this was a terrible time to learn how electricity works. I spent an embarrassing amount of time ramming into walls in the dark before getting the power working through the sheer force of my intellect, by which I mean plugging things into sockets until something happened. Of course, after this, my first instinct was to get inside the walls. This was a good instinct, rewarded with batteries and, survival dollars. Remember, the only thing that matters during a crisis is continuing to generate capital. The numbers must go up. Our primary objective is to get this boat in the dock working. Unfortunately, my technical expertise can be compared to that of an active threat, and without severe hand-holding, I was far more likely to sink it than make it go forward. We need to repair the diesel engine, reconnect the cylinders to it, not sure what geometry has to do with this, and refuel and repower the whole thing. To acquire the materials for this, the game provides a recycler. Its use is simple. Put thing in, it gets destroyed. Out comes something useful. We feed the bodies of our fallen brothers into the machine, and suddenly have everything we need. Allegedly. There's also a fabricator, which does the opposite. You take the useful things you just got from grinding up your friends and turn them into actual components. Batteries, engine parts, repair kits, anything the game decides you need before it lets you progress. Between the two machines, the gameplay loop becomes find debris, destroy debris, turn debris into progress. It's like if IKEA furniture assembly was the apocalypse. The barge itself needs 3 things before it'll move: a repaired diesel engine, a reconnected cylinder, and enough fuel and power to actually run. None of these are complicated, in theory. In practice, I spent an unreasonable amount of time trying to figure out which socket goes where, what counts as a valid power source, and why the engine keeps telling me it's not ready when I've clearly done everything right. I had not done everything right. Eventually, through a combination of brute force and mild desperation, the boat decides it's willing to cooperate. With the engine repaired and the barge repowered, we're finally ready to venture forth. Even in my diminished state, and despite this being a fairly minor achievement, I'm still proud. That feeling lasts right up until I open the massive mooring gates. Daylight floods into the dock, and I get behind the wheel, and nothing happens. A few frantic button presses later, human error, obviously, we're moving. Our voyage across a world reclaimed by the ocean, long after humans are gone. We press forward at a blistering 20 kilometers an hour, nearly hit a sea mine, and immediately sail straight into a rainstorm. Fantastic. Didn't realize we were in a shithole! Jokes aside, The Last Caretaker is an early access survival crafting game set on a flooded version of Earth, where you play as a caretaker robot, keeping abandoned infrastructure running long enough for humanity to maybe not fully disappear. This video is sponsored by Channel 37, the developers of The Last Caretaker, so thanks to them for supporting the video. The game launched in early access back in November, and what's here already feels like a pretty solid foundation. But back to the grind. The core loop of the game is essentially this: arrive somewhere broken, figure out what's wrong, scavenge materials, shove those materials into the recycler, use the recycler output to fabricate whatever you need, fix the thing, restore power, and then leave for somewhere else that's also broken. It's maintenance as a genre. You're not building a base or crafting armor sets or taming dinosaurs, as much as the skill set system would make you believe. You're just a very small robot trying to keep very large systems from collapsing entirely. The game doesn't really care if you're good at it. It just needs you to be persistent. Unfortunately for humanity, persistence is the only thing I have going for me. That and a crowbar that I'm fairly certain is a placeholder for an actual melee weapon. Our AI companion, who I have decided to trust despite every piece of media ever made suggesting this is a bad idea, guides us towards a navigation facility. Allegedly, if we bring it back online, we can locate something called the Lazarus Complex. Last hope of humanity. No pressure. Oh, also, if this looks like something you'd enjoy, make sure to check out the game using my link in the description. But more details about that later on. But I'll just say, the future looks extremely bright for this game. The navigation facility is, predictably, a mess. We pull up alongside it after nearly threading the needle through a sea mine, which I'm choosing to frame as skilled navigation rather than dumb luck. And the AI informs us that if we can get this place back online, we'll be able to locate the Lazarus Complex, the actual last hope of humanity. No pressure. I want to be clear, when a disembodied AI voice tells you that the fate of your species depends on climbing a radio tower in the middle of a hostile ocean, the correct response is probably to negotiate. I did not negotiate. I parked the boat and got to work like the obedient little maintenance unit I am. The facility itself is a vertical structure, a radio tower stretching up into the grey sky with a broadcast station at the top. To get it working, we need to climb to the top, fix whatever's broken up there, and then power the relay equipment below. Simple enough in theory. In practice, the place is crawling with enemies. Those black tentacle things are everywhere, latched onto walls and doorways like they're paying rent. Small corrupted robots skitter around in packs, aggressive and annoying in equal measure. And then there are the blobs, angry white ones, angry black ones, all of them angry, and all of them between me and where I need to go. It's like someone designed a tower defense game but forgot to give me the towers. I fight my way up, it's slow going. Every room has something that wants me dead, and my crowbar situation is not exactly what I'd call comfortable. It's what I'd call concerning, or possibly grounds for a workplace safety violation, but I push through, floor by floor, leaving a trail of recycled enemies behind me, until I reach the top of the tower. The repair itself is straightforward. A few broken components, some rewiring, nothing I haven't done before. What's less straightforward is the power situation. The broadcast equipment at the bottom needs electricity, and the facility's grid is as dead as everywhere else. This raises the question, where am I supposed to get power in a world where the infrastructure has been underwater for God knows how long? And the answer, apparently, is to simply make it myself. Fortunately, I've just leveled up enough to learn how to craft small batteries. It's one of those moments where the game's progression system actually lines up with what you need, which feels almost suspicious. Like the game is being nice to me on purpose, which means something horrible is about to happen. I use the materials I've gathered, plus some stuff scavenged from the facility itself, to build enough batteries to power the relay. It works, the equipment hums to life, the signal goes out. And then the AI tells us where the Lazarus Complex is. We have coordinates, we have a destination, we have hope, or at least the mechanical approximation of it. There's just one problem. I've completely drained the boat. In my enthusiasm to power the relay, I may have borrowed a bit too liberally from the barge's energy reserves. And by a bit too liberally, I mean the battery is basically empty, and we're not going anywhere until it's recharged. This is what happens when you let a maintenance robot make executive decisions. I have successfully located humanity's last hope, and simultaneously stranded myself in the middle of the ocean. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. This is fine, I can fix this. I just need to set up some alternative power generation and wait for the boat to charge back up. I scavenge more materials from the facility and jury-rig a small solar panel. The charging speed is, to put it charitably, not fast. It's like using one of those phone chargers that only works if you hold the cable at a specific angle while standing on one foot and praying to a god you don't believe in. Progress is happening, yeah, but slowly. I decide to go AFK, step away for a bit, let the systems do their thing. This was a mistake. I want to be very clear about something. In most games, going AFK is a minor inconvenience. Maybe you miss some dialogue, maybe a timer runs out. In The Last Caretaker, going AFK is how you discover that the ocean is full of creatures that want to kill you, and they have been waiting patiently for exactly this moment. I come back to find myself nearly dead. Those black fish things, the ones that leap out of the ocean like they're auditioning for a horror movie, have apparently been spawning and attacking while I was gone. My health is critical, the boat is surrounded, and the battery still isn't fully charged because of course it isn't. The game looked at my hubris and said, absolutely not. I panic, there's no other word for it. I sprint to the bridge, enemies snapping at my heels, and slam the throttle forward. The battery isn't full, it's night, I'm probably going to die. But staying here means definitely dying, so we're leaving. This is what passes for strategic thinking in my playthrough, choosing between certain death and probable death, and calling it a victory. The boat lurches forward, pulling away from the facility as those fish things splash back into the water behind us. I don't look back, I just drive, bleeding electricity and health, pushing towards the coordinates the AI gave us. We are leaving with less resources than we arrived with, which I'm fairly certain is the opposite of how exploration is supposed to work. The journey to the Lazarus Complex is tense. I'm running on fumes in every sense, but the ocean is quiet now, the enemy's left behind, and I allow myself a moment to appreciate the view. The water stretching out in every direction, the distant shapes of structures half submerged on the horizon. A robot shark circling in the distance, which I chose to ignore because I have bigger problems. In a different context, this would be beautiful. In this context, it's just the loading screen before the next disaster. We make it, barely. The Lazarus Complex rises out of the ocean ahead of us, and it looks exactly like what it is. Humanity's last hope. A massive structure, imposing and silent, waiting for someone to bring it back to life. The power is off, obviously, because nothing in this game has ever been convenient. It's even more infested than the navigation facility. Tentacles, corrupted robots, those blob things I'm developing a personal vendetta against. Last hope my ass. But we're here and we have a job to do. So where does that leave us? We have a boat with no power, a robot with no health, coordinates to a facility that's actively trying to kill us, and the unshakable feeling that this is only going to get worse. Let's get to work. The Lazarus Complex rises out of the ocean like a promise someone forgot to keep. It's massive, imposing, the kind of structure that says humanity had a plan while simultaneously looking like humanity's plan involved getting infested by hostile creatures and then dying. We pull up alongside it, which is becoming a running theme, and I take a moment to appreciate the scale. This is it, the actual last hope of humanity. The place where we're supposed to bring people back from extinction. The power is off. Of course the power is off. I don't know why I expected anything different. At this point, I should just assume that every single structure in this world is unpowered, infested, and actively hostile to my existence. It would save me the disappointment. We dock the boat and begin the familiar. Step 1. Clear the enemies. The Lazarus Complex is crawling with the usual suspects. Corrupted robots, tentacle things, those blob creatures I've now killed approximately 4,000 of. I fight my way through the exterior, burning energy, taking hits, generally having the kind of experience that would qualify as a workplace hazard in any reasonable employment context, but I push through. Because what else am I going to do? Give up? Humanity is counting on me. Humanity is making a terrible decision by counting on me, but here we are. Step 2. Restore power. I find the main junction, assess the damage, and discover that the facility's power grid is completely dead. Not partially dead, not needs a little work dead. Dead. The kind of dead where you look at it and think, this is gonna take a while. I scavenge materials from the surrounding area, chairs, consoles, the bodies of enemies I just killed, and feed them into the recycler. Out comes components. Components become solar panels become a very crude, very improvised power system that absolutely violates several safety codes. I wire it in. The facility hums to life, lights flicker on, systems start booting up. For one brief moment, I feel like I know what I'm doing. This feeling will not last. We descend into the Hall of Humanity, which sounds like it should be a museum or a monument, or at least something with a gift shop. Instead, it's a sparkling, flickering mess of broken infrastructure and dead robots. The name promises reverence. The reality delivers exposed wiring and structural damage. I want to be clear, whoever named this place was either deeply optimistic or deeply sarcastic. And I'm not sure which is worse. Hall of Humanity, more like Hall of Everything, is broken and also on fire. In the center of this room lies 4 broken Lazarus pods. A device that can, allegedly, bring a human back from whatever state humans are currently in. To get it working, we need parts, electricity, and water. The holy trinity are things I am bad at acquiring. If the game had asked me for violence and poor decisions, I'd be set. But no, it wants competence. It wants resource management, and it wants me to be good at my job, which is purely unreasonable. Parts are actually the easy bit. The game gives you a dismantling tool, which is essentially a license to cut up anything that isn't nailed down, and several things that are. Chairs dismantled, desks gone, wall panels gone as well, fallen robot comrades who died serving humanity, straight into the recycler. I spent a good chunk of time running around the Hall of Humanity with what is essentially a high-tech saw, reducing everything to scrap. I am become entropy, destroyer of furniture. There's something deeply uncomfortable about dismantling the Hall of Humanity in order to save humanity, but I've decided not to think about it too hard. The furniture was ugly anyway, and besides, it's not like anyone's gonna complain. Everyone who would have complained is dead. That's sort of the whole problem we're trying to solve here. Electricity and water are trickier. The correct solution, the one the game clearly wants you to figure out, is to build proper infrastructure. Solar panels, wind turbines, water pumps, purifiers, cables running from point A to point B in a way that makes some logical sense. You know, engineering, the things smart people do. The solution I actually go with is to shove some small batteries and water containers directly into the pod and hope for the best. I want to be very clear about something. I know this is a bad idea. I know with absolute certainty that this will provide power and water for approximately no time at all. And the moment the pod actually tries to do anything meaningful, it will drain everything instantly. I know this. The game knows I know this. God knows I know this. But here's the thing. That is a problem for future me, and I hate that guy. He can deal with it. With the pod limping online, held together by duct tape, denial, and a prayer to whatever God watches over incompetent robots, our AI companion reveals the next step. Somewhere out there is a human seed, which is exactly as uncomfortable a phrase as it sounds. I'm not going to dwell on the implications. I'm not going to ask follow-up questions. I'm not going to think about the logistics of how humanity stored itself in seed form or whatever that means for the fucking nature of consciousness or any of the deeply philosophical questions this raises. The point is, if we can retrieve one of these seeds and plug it into the Lazarus pod, we might actually be able to revive a person, a real living human being. The first one on Earth in a very long time. She marks a location on our map, Norfolk Grave. Sounds pleasant, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure a place called Norfolk Grave, located in a world where everything is underwater and hostile at the same time, will be a completely normal and non-traumatic experience. I have learned nothing from my previous experiences. We set off, the boat chugging along at its usual blistering pace, the whole of humanity shrinking behind us. I've left it in a state that can certainly be described as gutted. Half the furniture is gone, most of the robots have been fed into the recycler, the power situation is held together by hope and a battery that's already blinking. If this were a house, it would be condemned. If this were a business, it would fail a health inspection. If this were a metaphor for my decision-making skills, it would be uncomfortably accurate. But the pod is online, and that's what matters. Allegedly. Norfolk Grave turns out to be exactly as pleasant as the name suggests. We arrive at the coordinates, and I'm looking around for a facility, a building, a door, anything. Instead, there's ocean. Just ocean. Our AI companion, in her infinite wisdom, has neglected to mention one small detail about Norfolk Grave. It's underwater. Of course it is. Of course the critical information we need is sitting at the bottom of the ocean in a flooded facility with God knows what. I want to be clear. If you're going to send me on a mission to retrieve vital data, the phrase, "by the way, it's at the bottom of the ocean," should probably come up before I've already arrived. Could have prepared, could have built something, could have mentally steeled myself, could have at least brought a towel. Instead, we're here. The boat is floating above our destination, and the only way forward is down. This presents a problem. I am a robot. Robots and water have historically not been friends. But the game doesn't care about historical precedent, and neither does the AI voice telling me to get on with it. So I drop anchor, take a deep breath that I don't technically need because I'm a robot, and dive. Attempt 1. It does not go well. The first problem is the pressure. Turns out robots are not designed for deep sea exploration, and the further down I go, the more my systems start screaming at me. Warning indicators everywhere. The second problem is the welcoming committee. Black tentacle things attached to the walls. Those horrible little piranha black thing creatures made of corrupted dark matter or whatever the fuck. They swarm almost immediately. And between the pressure damage and the enemies, I last approximately 15 seconds before everything goes dark. Respawn, back on the boat. Cool. So that's what's down there. Good to know. Would have been better to know before I died, but information is information. Attempt 2. The thing about The Last Caretaker is that it doesn't really care if you fail. It expects you to fail. Death isn't a punishment so much as it is a teaching method. The game just showed me what's down there, how much it hurts, and how quickly things can go wrong. Now it's my turn to figure out how to deal with that. The lesson, presumably, is to be better, to plan ahead, to approach the situation with caution and strategy. My strategy is to simply swim faster. This time I move quicker, taking the pressure damage as a given and just trying to outrun it, outswim it, outsubmerge it. The point is, I'm going down there and I'm not stopping until I find air or die. The tentacles are still there, the piranha things are also still there, but I spot an open skylight in the facility's roof, and I make a desperate flailing beeline for it, health dropping, warning indicators flashing, my robot body making sounds that no robot should make. I squeeze through the gap and fall into a pocket of air inside the facility. I'm alive. Technically. Barely. My health bar looks like a war crime. The inside of Norfolk Grave is exactly what you'd expect from an underwater facility that's been abandoned and infested for presumably years. Flickering lights, debris everywhere. The general aesthetic of something terrible happened here, and also something terrible is still happening here. And of course, more tentacles, more corrupted robots, more of those black and white blob things that seem to exist purely to make my life difficult. At this point, I'm fairly certain these creatures spawn specifically when I enter a room, as if the game has a personal vendetta against me. The game, however, has recently blessed me with the ability to craft a pistol, so I do what any reasonable person would do in this situation. I start blasting. There's something almost cathartic about it. After all the careful maintenance, the wire routing, the socket puzzles, the recycler optimization, just shooting things feels like a holiday. A violent holiday. A holiday where the resort is underwater and everyone wants you dead, but a holiday nonetheless. The pistol isn't powerful and I burn through ammo faster than I'd like, but it does get the job done. Room by room, I push deeper into Norfolk Grave, clearing out the corruption, kinda, and trying not to think about how I'm going to get back to the surface. That's a problem for future me, and as I've already established, I hate that guy. Eventually, I find what I'm looking for. A control room, still intact, mostly. There's a terminal that looks like it might have the information we need, but of course it's unpowered, because nothing in this game is ever just ready to go. Nothing is ever just, here's the thing you need, please take it. It's always, here's the thing you need, but first you have to solve a problem, and also there are enemies, and also you are dying. Fortunately, there's a battery nearby, one of the few things in this facility that hasn't been destroyed, corrupted, or somehow turned into an enemy, and I plug it in. The terminal flickers to life. I access the records, and there it is. The location of Seed Vault Prometheus, a facility that, according to this terminal anyway, contains stored human genetic material. Human seeds. I'm not going to dwell on the phrasing once more. The point is, this is the thing we need to actually make the Lazarus pod do its job. I download the coordinates, try not to think about how grim this whole situation is, and start making my way back towards the skylight. The return trip is somehow worse. The enemies might have respawned, or maybe there were more of them waiting. Either way, Norfolk Grave has decided that letting me leave would be too convenient, and convenience is not on the menu as we have already established. I run more than I fight, taking hits, burning through what little health I have left. The swim back to the surface is agonizing. Pressure damage ticking away, my robot body screaming at me to stop doing whatever it is that I'm doing. Warning indicators I didn't even know existed are now flashing. I'm fairly certain I invented new ways to almost die, but I make it. Barely. I breach the surface, drag myself back onto the boat, and sit there for a moment. Norfolk Grave, information acquired. Cost, multiple deaths, most of my ammo, and whatever dignity I had left. If this were a performance review, I would not be getting a raise. The AI congratulates on my success, but I don't feel successful. I feel like I just got mugged by the fucking ocean. The ocean saw me coming, waited patiently, and then beat the shit out of me for 15 minutes straight. And I'm supposed to be grateful that I survived. But we have coordinates now. Seed Vault Prometheus. That's where we're going next. Presumably, it will be above water. Presumably, it will be easy. Presumably, the game will stop trying to kill me for 5 minutes. I have learned nothing. But before we carry on, The Last Caretaker is currently in early access on Steam. I told you I'd talk about it later. What you've been watching is not the finished product. It's an ongoing project that's still being actively developed. The team at Channel 37 has been putting out consistent updates, including a December patch that's already live, and there's a full roadmap stretching into 2026. What's here right now is substantial. I've spent a genuinely unreasonable number of hours on this, and there's more content than I expected going in. But it's also clearly a game that's still growing. Systems are being refined, content is being added. The kind of stuff that makes early access actually mean something, rather than just being a label slapped on an abandoned prototype. If any of this at all looks interesting to you, the maintenance loop, the atmosphere, the whole fix things until humanity survives vibes, or even the beautiful graphics, the link to the Steam page is in the description. Wish listing does help. Buying helps more, and leaving feedback helps most of all because that's how early access games actually get better. Alright, back to the job. Seed Vault Prometheus is visible from a distance, and I'll give it this. It is beautiful. White spires rising out of the ocean, almost elegant against the grey sky. It looks like something that was designed to be impressive, to inspire hope, to make people feel like humanity had a plan. A monument to foresight and preparation. The kind of place you'd put on a postcard if postcards still existed, and also if the postcard industry hadn't been swallowed by the ocean along with everything else. It's also absolutely crawling with enemies. As we get closer, the situation becomes clearer. The surface level is patrolled by what I can only describe as angels. Flying robotic units with miniguns attached. They drift around the facility like they own the place, which I suppose they do? I did not pay rent to be here. They did not ask for rent. This is a transaction that benefits neither party. The walls and platforms are plastered with the usual corrupted robots' tentacles and those black blob things that I've started to develop a personal vendetta against. At this point, I'm fairly certain I've killed more of these things than any other living creature in history. And they just keep coming. This seed vault was clearly designed to preserve humanity's future. Now, it's a fortress held by things that want me dead. We pull up alongside the facility, as we do to every fucking place, apparently. Now comes the actual problem. Getting down to the vault. The seeds are stored below, deep inside the facility, and to access the lower levels, I need to, surprise, surprise, restore power. The elevator won't move without it. The doors won't open without it. Nothing works without electricity, and the facility's power grid is as dead as everything else in this world. I'm starting to think the apocalypse was specifically designed to inconvenience me. I consider my options. I've got leftover materials from stripping down the whole of humanity. Yes, I dismantled a monument to human achievement for spare parts, we've been over this. So I build a solar panel and wire it into the facility's power system. It works, technically. The elevator hums to life, the door unlocks, and I feel briefly competent. This feeling lasts approximately 55 seconds. The solar panel isn't generating enough power to sustain anything long-term, primarily due to the fact that the power is solar. At night, I'm a bit fucked. And the moment I go below the surface, I'll probably lose access to half the systems I just turned on. After some consideration, and by consideration I mean staring at the problem while my brain makes dial-up internet noises, I come up with a backup plan. I pull the boat alongside the power shed, find the mains connection, and just plug the whole facility into the boat's power supply. Is this a good idea? Absolutely not. Is it going to work? Unclear. Is it the type of thing that would make an actual electrician cry? Almost certainly. Am I going to do it anyway? Obviously. With power restored through what I can only describe as an electrical war crime, I take the elevator down, tens of meters below the surface, into the heart of Seed Vault Prometheus, and it's a mess. Somehow, despite being deep underwater, despite being sealed off, despite being humanity's last hope for genetic preservation, the lower levels are even more infested than the surface. Tentacles everywhere, hordes of corrupted robots, swarms of those black and white blob creatures that move faster than they have any right to. It's like someone looked at the phrase secure storage facility and decided it meant nightmare dungeon. The elevator doors open and I'm immediately under assault. I fight, I push forward, I make it maybe 50 meters before I'm completely overwhelmed. Enemies from every direction, health evaporating, the distinct feeling that I have made a series of poor decisions leading back to this exact moment. Back on the boat. Right, okay, new plan. More ammo, more preparation, less optimism. The optimism clearly was not working. I craft everything I can. Bullets, batteries, medical supplies, anything that might help. I briefly consider crafting a will. Then I go back down. This time, I'm more careful, more methodical. I clear rooms one by one, retreating when I need to, resupplying when I run low. It's slow, it's tedious. It's the kind of gameplay that would make for a very boring montage, but it's progress. Eventually, I find a pipe that leads to a secondary power room, because of course the facility has multiple power rooms. Because of course one solar panel and a boat plugged into the mains wasn't going to cut it. Because of course. I crawl through the pipe like the world's most pathetic action hero, emerge into another sparking, flickering room, and use a battery to bring the section online. A door unlocks opposite to where we are, and the path forward opens up. The hallway between me and the actual seed vault is predictably just as infested as everything else. And I have predictably run out of ammo again. I consider my options, go back to the boat, craft more bullets, return, clear the hallway properly. That is the smart play. That's what a competent person would do. That's the strategy recommended by literally anyone with a functioning survival instinct or even a brain. Instead, I pull out the crowbar. What follows is not my proudest moment. I want to be very clear about that. What follows is the kind of thing you do when you've been playing for too long and your decision-making skills have completely deteriorated. I wade into the hallway, swinging a metal bar at corrupted robots and blob creatures, taking hits, dealing hits, generally behaving like someone who has completely given up on planning. There is no strategy here. There is only violence and forward momentum. It's messy, it's desperate. It's the gameplay equivalent of solving a Rubik's Cube by smashing it against a wall. It works. I break through into the seed vault itself, which is, and I cannot stress this enough, also infested. There are enemies everywhere. The smart thing to do would be to clear the room, secure the area, carefully extract the human seed, and ensure its safety. The smart thing would be to treat the moment with the gravity it deserves, given that I'm literally holding the future of humanity in my hands. I do not the smart thing. I honestly am keeping that. I sprint to the nearest seed container, grab a human seed, shove it into a transport pod, and run. Full speed, no hesitation. Back through the hallway, back through the pipe, back to the elevator. Enemies chasing me, health dropping, alarms probably going off somewhere. I don't stop. I don't look back. I don't do anything that could be described as professional or competent or befitting the gravity of the situation. I just run. The elevator takes me back to the surface. I sprint across the top deck, leap onto the boat, and slam the throttle forward. Behind me, Seed Vault Prometheus shrinks into the distance, still infested, still dangerous, absolutely not secured in any meaningful way. I have not saved this facility, I have not cleared the corruption, I have not done anything except commit a heist and flee the sea. But I have the seed. Our AI companion chooses this moment to inform me that human seeds are time sensitive. If we don't get this back to the Lazarus pod quickly, it will die. The thing I just risked my life for, the thing I beat robots to death with a crowbar for, the thing that represents humanity's only chance at revival, it has an expiration date. I'm sorry, what? You're telling me now Not before I went in, not when I was planning this whole operation. Now, after I've already stolen humanity's future and I'm fleeing across the ocean. This information would have been useful literally any time before this exact moment. Cool, great. No pressure. I push the boat as fast as it will go, which thanks to the engine upgrades I installed earlier is actually reasonably fast. The ocean blurs past, the minutes tick by. I try not to think about what happens if I'm too slow. I try not to think about being the robot who dropped humanity's last chance because he didn't drive fast enough. I try not to think about anything except the destination. We make it back to the whole of humanity with time to spare. Barely, but spare is spare. I'll take it. The seed goes into the Lazarus pod. The machine hums to life. For one brief, beautiful moment, I allow myself to feel like I've accomplished something. And then, because nothing in this game is ever simple, 2 new problems emerge. First problem, the pod needs more than just power and water to grow a human. It needs food, and it needs memories, items from the old world that carry some kind of emotional or cultural significance. Photographs, books, personal effects, anything that might help a newly revived human understand what they're waking up into. The game frames this as giving the human a foundation, a sense of identity, a connection to the world that was. I frame it as, great, more fetch quests. Fortunately, I've been hoarding. Every weird trinket, every old photograph, every piece of pre-apocalypse junk I picked up because it looked interesting and I didn't know what else to do with it, all of a sudden it has a purpose. I feed the memories into the pod one by one, watching the stats tick up. It feels oddly personal, giving this unborn human a curated selection of the past. Here's a book, here's someone's family photo, here's a mug with a logo on it. Good luck making sense of any of this when you wake up. The food is easier, I've got supplies, and the pod accepts them without complaint. Second problem, remember when I said shoving batteries and water containers into the pod was a terrible idea that would definitely come back to bite me? Yeah, that's happening now. The pod is trying to gestate an actual human being, and the power and water I gave it were never designed to sustain anything long term. The batteries are draining, the water containers are emptying. The machine is blinking warnings at me, politely informing me that if I don't fix the situation immediately, the whole thing is going to fail and the human seed I nearly died for is going to become very expensive compost. Future me has arrived, and past me has left him an absolute disaster. I need real infrastructure, actual sustainable power and water systems that can run without me constantly babysitting them. The whole of humanity's, despite being half dismantled, does have the bones of what I need. There's a section leading outside with broken solar panels and wind turbines. If I can repair those and wire them properly, I can generate consistent power. There are water pumps and purifiers at the bottom of the facility. If I can get those running and pipe the water up, I can keep the pod hydrated. That is, of course, easier said than done. I start with the power. The solar panels are damaged but fixable. The wind turbines need new parts, which means more recycler work, which means more scavenging. I spent an embarrassing amount of time running back and forth, gathering materials, feeding them into the recycler, fabricating components, hauling them outside, and installing them piece by piece. Slowly the power infrastructure comes online. I wire it into a battery bank, then run cables from the battery bank to the recycler and fabricator. The last part is purely selfish. I am so tired of running back to the boat every time I need to craft something. Having the recycler and fabricated powered locally feels like a luxury I've earned through suffering. Next, the water. The pumps and purifiers are at the very bottom of the whole of humanity, which means descending through multiple layers of increasingly sketchy infrastructure. I grab an electrical cable, start making my way down, and promptly discover that the game has a fall damage system that I had somehow forgotten about while attempting to abseil. I break my legs. They'd still work, but it hurt. But I do get to the pumps anyway. I get them running, I connect the purifiers, I pipe the water back up to the pod level, trying not to think about how many structural regulations I'm violating by running plumbing through what is essentially a collapsing building. Finally, I wire everything into the Lazarus pod, power from the solar panels and wind turbines, water from the pumps below. The machine stabilizes, the warnings stop flashing, and the gestation process can actually begin properly now. I set it to run, 10 minutes until we have a human. I watch the screen as the stats slowly climb. Health, cognitive function, physical development. All of it is ticking upward as the pod does its work. It's strange watching a person come into existence through what is essentially a progress bar. The game doesn't make it feel miraculous, it feels industrial, clinical, just a process being completed. As the numbers climb, I find myself thinking about what we're actually doing here. We're not saving humanity in any grand sense. We're manufacturing a single person in a broken machine using scavenged parts and improvised infrastructure. This human, when they wake up, will be alone on a planet that's almost entirely water, surrounded by hostile machines and corrupted entities, dependent on a single maintenance robot who can barely keep a fucking boat running. Their life expectancy, according to the pod's readout, is not great. The stats settle into ranges that would have been concerning before the apocalypse, but now they're the best we can do. The pod finishes its work, the gestation is complete. We have a human, one single human being, alive for the first time in however long it's been since the last one died. They're not conscious yet, still in the pod, still stabilizing, but they exist, and that is something. Our AI companion interrupts my brief moment of contemplation to inform me that we can't stay here. The whole of humanity isn't safe long term. The infrastructure I've built is held together with hope and spit. If we want this human to actually survive, we need to get them somewhere better. She tells me about the Gestation, a facility designed specifically for this purpose, to launch survivors off-world. To give humanity a second chance somewhere that isn't a flooded ruin patrolled by murder robots. It's located somewhere vaguely southeast of here. Vaguely southeast is not the precise coordinates I was hoping for, but it's a direction, and direction is enough. I load the pod onto the boat, make sure the human is stable, and set off into the open ocean once more. Behind me, the whole of humanity stands half-gutted, its solar panels spinning, its water pumps humming, running systems that no longer have a purpose now that we're gone. It did its job. That's enough. The journey southeast is, for once, almost peaceful. No immediate threats, no systems failing, just the boat cutting through grey water under a grey sky, the pod humming quietly behind me, and the vague hope that I'm heading in the right direction. Without a waypoint to guide me, vaguely southeast is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I pick a direction that feels right and commit to it, which is exactly the kind of navigation strategy that gets people killed. But the AI said southeast, and southeast is where we're going. To pass the time, and because I'm running low on materials, I do some hunting. The game has blessed me with a bolt rifle at this point, and it turns out robot sharks are both a threat and a resource. I spot a few circling in the distance, line up my shots, and start collecting scrap. It's almost relaxing, almost like a normal activity that a normal person might do if a normal person hunted mechanical sea predators for spare parts in a flooded apocalypse. The peace doesn't last. It never does. The diesel gauge starts dropping faster than I'd like. I've been pushing the engine hard, trying to cover as much distance as possible, and now I'm paying for it. The boat slows as the fuel runs low, our blistering 20 kilometers an hour dropping to something more like a gentle drift. This is bad. Being stranded in the middle of the ocean with a time-sensitive human in a pod is not part of the plan. Just as I'm starting to calculate how long I can survive on shark scrap and desperation, I spot something on the horizon. A structure. It looks familiar, the same general shape as the facility where I first woke up. Oil rig architecture, industrial bones. We limp towards it, the last of the diesel carrying us just close enough to drop anchor. As we approach, the AI speaks up. She's been quiet for most of the journey, but now she has something to say. She tells me that when she first activated, she sent signals to every caretaker unit she could reach. Activation codes, wake-up calls, a request for any functional robot to respond and begin the work of preservation. But I was the only one who answered. Out of however many caretaker units existed across however many facilities, I was the only one who woke up and got to work. The others are still out there, presumably, still dormant, still waiting for a signal they already received and ignored. She doesn't know why. She says there's something different about me, a human element, whatever that means, but she doesn't elaborate and I don't push because I don't speak. It's an uncomfortable thought though. I've spent this entire time assuming I was just a robot doing robot things, following instructions, completing tasks. The idea that there's something else going on, something that makes me different from the others, doesn't sit well. I don't want to be special, I just want to fix things and not die. We pull up alongside the facility. It's almost identical to where I started. Same layout, same design, same sense of abandonment and decay. The familiarity is uncanny, like visiting a house you grew up in after years away. I clear the place out. By now, this part is routine. Corrupted robots, tentacles, blobs. I know the patterns. I know the weak points. I know how to move through a space like this without getting killed. The facility has power remaining in its batteries, enough to get the essential systems running. I open the dock gates, pull the boat inside, and find exactly what I need. Diesel. Lots of it, and power cells. I refuel everything, top off the boat, fill spare tanks, steal every battery that isn't nailed down, and a few that are. If I'm gonna find the Gestation, I'm not doing it on fumes. With the logistics sorted, I head deeper into the facility. The AI mentioned there was a caretaker unit here, one of the ones that didn't respond to her signal. I want to see it. I find the robot in a bedroom. The same kind of bedroom I woke up in, back at the very beginning. It's lying there, dormant, exactly where it was left, waiting for an activation code that already came and went. I stood there for a moment, looking at it. That could have been me, if whatever human element the AI mentioned hadn't been there. I'd be lying in a room just like this one, sleeping through the end of the world, while the oceans rose and humanity faded away. The AI seems as confused as I am. She sent the same signal to this unit, the same code, the same instructions. It should have woken up. It didn't. She says she doesn't understand what makes me different, but neither do I. Back on the boat, I scan the horizon. There's a structure in the distance. Large, industrial, vaguely station-shaped. It's the right direction, it's the right size. It has to be the Gestation. We set off, the boat fully refueled, the pod stable, the humans inside still alive. Behind me, the dormant caretaker stays in its room, dreaming whatever robots dream about when they refuse to wake up. I try not to think about it too hard. The Gestation is everything I hoped it would be, and everything I dreaded it would be. As we pull closer, the scale becomes apparent. This isn't just a facility, it's a monument, a final statement from a civilization that knew it was dying and decided to go out with architectural ambition. There's a central building with massive statues flanking what looks like a waiting room, a lift system leading up to a platform, and beyond that, visible even from the water, a rocket. An actual rocket, pointed at the sky, ready to launch. This is it. This is where we send the human off-world. This is where the job ends. First, of course, we have to make it work. I dock the boat and begin the ritual, plug the power in, clear out the corrupted entities. By now, this process is muscle memory. I could do it in my sleep. I probably have done it in my sleep, given how little rest robots apparently need. The Gestation is infested like everywhere else, but it's manageable. Routine. I clear room after room, recycling the bodies of my enemies because waste not, want not. The station's interior is strangely moving in a way that I wasn't expecting. The waiting room has seats, rows and rows of seats. There are posters on the walls, information boards, signs directing people to different areas. This place was designed for crowds, dozens, maybe hundreds of people, all waiting for their turn to leave Earth. None of them made it. I'm the only one here now. Me, a pod with a single human inside and a rocket that hasn't been fueled in God knows how long. To make the launch happen, I need 3 things. Power, obviously, because nothing in this world works without power. Oxygen for the human to breathe during whatever journey they're about to take, and methane for the rocket fuel. I start with power because I understand power. Solar panels, wind turbines, batteries. I built these systems so many times now that I could probably do it blindfolded. I construct a small electricity farm outside the rocket, turbines and panels working together, then run cables up the lift to the rocket's base systems. It's not elegant, but it's functional. Oxygen is next. The station has an oxygen generator, which is a fancy way of saying machine that makes breathable air. I hook it up to the power grid I just built, and it hums to life. One problem solved. Methane is where things get complicated. The rocket runs on methane, which I simply cannot find lying around. I have to make it. The game introduces me to something called a Sabatier reactor, which sounds like something a scientist would name and a maintenance robot would regret learning about. The reactor takes 3 inputs: water, electricity, and carbon dioxide. Combine them correctly and out comes methane. Electricity I have. Water I can get from the pumps nearby, run for a purifier. Carbon dioxide is the problem. The only way to produce carbon dioxide, apparently, is through combustion, specifically through petrol generators that burn biomass. The generators create electricity as their primary function and produce carbon dioxide as a byproduct. So I need biomass. Lots of it. Biomass in this context means organic material, creatures, anything that used to be alive. Time for another hunting expedition. I take the boat back out into the open water, bolt rifle ready, and I start killing everything that moves. Robot sharks, those weird fish things, anything mechanical with organic components gets hunted, killed, and harvested. It's brutal, it's efficient. It's exactly the kind of work a maintenance robot should not be doing. But here we are. The montage version of this would be exciting. Quick cuts, action shots, dramatic music. The reality is me spending an unreasonable amount of time chasing sharks in circles, missing shots, running out of ammo, crafting more ammo, and slowly accumulating enough biomass to fuel a rocket. Eventually, I have enough. I haul it all back to the Gestation and feed it into the generators. They churn through the biomass, producing electricity and carbon dioxide. I pipe the carbon dioxide into the Sabatier reactor, along with the water and additional power. The reactor does its thing. Methane starts flowing into the rocket's fuel tanks. The process takes time, a lot of time. I find myself wandering the station while I wait, looking at the empty seats, the faded posters, the signs pointing to destinations that no longer exist. This place was supposed to save everyone. Instead, it's saving one person, and only because a single malfunctioning robot refused to stay asleep. But here's the thing about the Gestation. It's full of stuff. Chairs, consoles, computers, structural elements that look important but probably aren't. And by now I have developed a very specific reflex when I see stuff. I start dismantling. The waiting room goes first. Anything that isn't bolted down becomes materials. The information boards recycled. The desks straight into the grinder. I am become entropy, destroyer of interior design. It's not even strategic at this point, it's just a compulsion. I see a chair and my brain just goes, that could be components. I see a wall panel and think, that's at least 3 units of metal scrap. The Gestation was humanity's last monument to hope and ambition, and I am taking it apart piece by piece because I might need the materials later. I probably won't. The rocket is almost fueled, the job is almost done, but I can't stop. Every surface that isn't essential gets fed into the recycler, every fallen robot, every broken console, every piece of furniture that had the audacity to exist in my line of sight. All of it becomes raw materials. By the time the methane tanks are full, the Gestation looks like it's been burgled by someone with very specific tastes. The rocket is ready, the infrastructure is complete, and the waiting room has been reduced to bare walls and confused emptiness. Humanity's final departure lounge gutted by its final caretaker. I try not to think about the symbolism. The fuel gauges hit full. Everything is ready. I take the pod from the boat, carry it up the lift, across the platform, and into the rocket itself. The human inside is still stable, still alive, still completely unaware of what's about to happen to them. I secure the pod in place, check the connections, make sure everything is properly sealed and powered. This is it. This is the moment everything has been building towards. I head to the control room. The control room is quieter than I expected. Banks of consoles, most of them dark, a few blinking with standby indicators, a large window overlooking the launch platform, and one big button that I'm trying very hard not to press until I'm sure everything is ready. I run through the checklist: power stable, oxygen loaded, methane full, pod secured. Human alive? Probably confused if they're conscious at all, but alive. There's a weather system I hadn't accounted for. The launch requires clear conditions, or at least clearer than the perpetual grey that seems to hang over this world. I have to wait. The console tells me the window is coming, I just need to be patient. I'm not good at being patient. I spent the time staring out the window at the rocket. It's strange seeing it there, ready to go. This whole journey, the oil rig, the boat, the recycler, the whole of humanity, Norfolk Grave, Seed Vault Prometheus, every broken system and improvised solution, it all led here, to a single rocket, pointed at a sky I can barely see through the clouds. One human, that's what we're saving. One person grown in a machine, fed with scavenged memories, kept alive by infrastructure I built out of dismantled furniture and dead robots. They're going to wake up somewhere else, somewhere that isn't this flooded ruin, and they won't know any of this. They won't know about the pressure damage at Norfolk Grave, or the crowbar fight at Prometheus, or the time I broke my legs falling down the whole of humanity. They'll just exist, somewhere new, without any of the context. Maybe that's for the best. The context isn't exactly inspiring. I think about what it means to save someone like this. It's not heroic. There's no crowd watching, no celebration, no sense of triumph. It's just a job, a task completed. I found the seed, I grew the human, I fueled the rocket. The systems are aligned, the process is finished. That's all there is. The AI hasn't said much. She's been quiet since the dormant caretaker, since she admitted she doesn't understand why I'm different. I wonder if she's thinking about it too, about what happens after, about whether any of this matters. The weather starts to clear, the console lights up. Launch window approaching. I watch the clouds thin, patches of something that might be blue, sky appearing for the first time since I started this journey. It's almost beautiful, almost hopeful, if you squint and ignore everything else. I move to the launch console. The button is right there. One press and it's done. I think about the human in the pod. They didn't ask for this. They didn't choose to be the one we saved. They were just available, a seed in a vault, waiting. Now they're going to carry the entire weight of human survival on their shoulders, and they don't even know it yet. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but fair isn't really part of the equation anymore. The world ended, the oceans rose. Everyone died except for the genetic material we managed to keep in storage. Fair left the building a long time ago. All that's left is the work, and the work is almost done. I press the button. The console begins the countdown, numbers ticking down on the screen, systems engaging one by one. I hear the rocket coming to life outside, fuel pumps activating, engines warming up. The whole massive structure shuddering as it prepares to do the one thing it was built for. I leave the control room. I want to see this. The platform outside gives me a clear view of the launch pad. The rocket stands there, gleaming, despite everything, pointed at the clearing sky. The countdown continues, audible now, echoing across the empty station. 10, 9, 8. I think about the oil rig where I woke up. The bodies of robots in the halls, the AI voice telling me to fix things. 7, 6, 5. I think about the boat, the recycler, the fabricator, the endless cycle of breaking things down and building them back up. 4, 3. I think about the dormant caretaker in that bedroom, the one that didn't wake up, the one that could have been me. 2, 1. The engines ignite. The sound is overwhelming, a roar that fills the entire station, that shakes the platform under my feet, that drowns out everything else. Fire and light pour from the base of the rocket as it begins to lift. Slowly at first, then faster, then impossibly fast. It rises through the clearing clouds, a white spire against grey, then blue, then nothing. I watch until I can't see it anymore, until it's just a dot, then a glimmer, then gone. The station falls silent. The rocket is gone, the human is gone. Somewhere out there, beyond the clouds, beyond the atmosphere, beyond everything I can see or touch or fix. A single person is hurtling towards whatever comes next. A new world maybe, a space station, a colony, I don't know. The AI didn't say and I didn't ask. It doesn't matter. My part is done. I stand on the platform for a while, looking at the empty launch pad. The scorch marks where the rocket used to be, the silence where the countdown used to be. The AI speaks up. She tells me there's a signal, something incoming, another facility maybe, another task. I don't respond immediately. For a moment, I just stand there, a small robot on a big platform, surrounded by the gutted remains of humanity's lost monument, looking at a sky that's already starting to cloud over again. One human, that's what we saved. One person out of everyone who ever lived. It's not enough. It was never going to be enough, but it's something. The AI asks if I'm ready to continue. There's more work to be done, apparently. There's always more work to be done. I turn away from the launch pad. I head back towards the boat. Yeah, I'm ready. Now let's be honest for a second. The Last Caretaker is not a polished game. It's early access, and it still feels like early access. Not in a broken way, but in a this is clearly still being built way, and I think it's worth talking about that before we go any further. Performance is inconsistent. Sometimes the game runs fine, sometimes it doesn't. I learned to factor that into playing, saving before big moments, not trusting the frame rate during combat, accepting that certain areas were going to chug regardless of what I did. It's not unplayable, it's just kind of wobbly. Like the game itself is running on the same jury-rigged infrastructure I kept building. The systems occasionally behave in ways that don't quite make sense. Power routing that should work but doesn't, connectors that seem correct but refuse to register. I spent more time than I'd like to admit troubleshooting things that probably shouldn't have needed troubleshooting. But honestly, that almost fits. The whole game is about maintaining systems that weren't designed to be maintained by you in conditions they weren't built for. A little unexplained friction feels thematically appropriate, even if it's probably just a bug. And there's grind here, real grind, running back and forth to craft ammo, hunting sharks for biomass, waiting for batteries to charge at speeds that make dial-up internet look efficient. The repetition is noticeable, and if you're the kind of player who needs constant forward momentum, it might weigh you down. But for me, it reinforced something. This isn't a power fantasy and you're not ascending, you're just doing the work, over and over because the work needs to be done. The grind isn't really, it's not a bug, it's a feature. And then there's the physical jank. Objects sliding around where they shouldn't. Diesel tanks drifting across the deck like they're trying to escape. The occasional moment where something clips through something else and you just kind of have to accept it and move on. It's the kind of stuff that would be unforgivable in a finished product, but is merely annoying in early access. I noticed it, I rolled my eyes, I kept playing. And that's the thing, I kept playing. 25 hours, that's how long I spent with The Last Caretaker before I launched that rocket. And at no point during those 25 hours did I seriously consider stopping. Not because the game is perfect, it very obviously isn't, at least not yet, but because it's engaging. The systems are interesting enough that I wanted to understand them. The progression is satisfying enough that I wanted to see what came next. The world is atmospheric enough that I wanted to keep exploring it, even when exploration meant dying to pressure damage in an underwater facility that I wasn't prepared for. There's a difference between friction and frustration. Friction slows you down but keeps you engaged. Frustration makes you want to quit. The Last Caretaker has friction, lots of it. But it rarely tipped into frustration for me, and when it did, it was usually my fault anyway. So no, this isn't a clean recommendation. I'm not going to tell you that the game runs great, because it doesn't always. I'm not going to tell you every system works perfectly, because they don't. I'm not going to pretend the grind doesn't exist or the jank isn't noticeable. But I am going to tell you that I played for 25 hours, launched a human into space, and genuinely wanted to keep going afterward. That's not nothing. In early access, that's actually kind of rare. 25 hours. That's how long it took to get one human off the planet. One human, after all of that. The oil rig, the boat, the navigation facility, Norfolk Grave, Seed Vault Prometheus, the whole of humanity, the Exodus Station. The result is a single person in a pod, launched into space, destination unknown. The amount of work that went into that outcome is almost comical when you say it out loud. I dismantled entire facilities. I fed robots into a recycler. I beat corrupted machines to death with a crowbar because I ran out of bullets. I broke my legs falling down a shaft. I nearly died to fish while AFK. And the payoff is one rocket going up. That's the scale mismatch at the heart of this game. The effort is enormous, the outcome is tiny, and somehow that's not a complaint. I didn't enjoy every single minute of The Last Caretaker. There were stretches that dragged, moments where I was just waiting for something to charge or running back to the boat for the 5th time to craft more ammo, or trying to figure out why a power connection wasn't registering where it clearly should have been. The game asked a lot of me, and it didn't always feel fair, but I stayed engaged for 25 hours. That matters more than polish alone. There was always something to do, not in an overwhelming way, not the kind of endless task list that makes you want to quit, but in a steady procedural way. Fix this, build that, get to the next location. The short-term goals were always clear, and they all fed into one long-term objective that I actually cared about. When the systems clicked together, when the power routed correctly and the machines hummed to life and the thing I needed finally got built, there was genuine satisfaction here. Not triumph, just the quiet feeling of something working the way it was supposed to. The friction helped weirdly. The grind, the repetition, the slow pace of charging batteries and scavenging materials. It reinforced the feeling that this was labor. Real, tedious, necessary labor. The kind of work that doesn't feel heroic because it isn't really supposed to. You're a maintenance robot. You maintain things. That is the job. I'm stopping here at the launch because this feels like a complete experience. There's more content in the game. The AI mentioned a signal. There are clearly other facilities, other tasks waiting. But the moment is structurally whole. I was given an objective. Wake up, fix things, save a human. I did that. The rocket launched, the human is gone. And if you want to see more, you can always check the game out yourself, just saying. Continuing would be fine. The game supports it, but I don't feel like I left something unfinished. I feel like I completed a task and now I'm allowed to stop. That's rare in survival games. Usually they just keep going until you burn out or get bored. The Last Caretaker let me reach a natural endpoint, and that is worth acknowledging. I didn't become powerful over these 25 hours. I didn't unlock some ultimate ability or build an empire or dominate the wasteland. I ended the game exactly as I started it. A small robot on a boat, surrounded by broken systems that need fixing. The only difference is that now, somewhere out there, one person exists who didn't exist before. That restraint, I believe, is intentional. The game isn't interested in a power fantasy. It's interested in something quieter, smaller, more honest about what survival actually looks like. And I respect that, even when it frustrated me. The Last Caretaker is still in early access, and the developers are actively working on it. There's a roadmap stretching into 2026. Updates are coming, and what's here now is clearly a foundation rather than a finished product. If they smooth the rough edges, tighten the performance, refine the systems, polish the jank, this could land somewhere really special. The bones are good, the atmosphere is good, the design philosophy is good, it just needs time. This isn't a game for everyone. It's slow, it's demanding, it doesn't reward you the way most games do. But if you're the kind of player who finds satisfaction in systems, in atmosphere, in doing unglamorous work because the work needs to be done, there's something here worth experiencing. The link to the Steam page is in the description. It's early access. Temper your expectations accordingly. Thanks for watching. Oh, and yes, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Second fully sponsored video, but honestly, I mean, yeah, I know they pay me to play this game, but I actually had fun. Obviously, everything I said before remains the same, but I think people should check it out. If you like Satisfactory, I think you'll like this game. If you like any survival games, I think you'll like this game. And there's a lot of potential here. Other than when my boat fucking... the diesel engine slid into the back of the boat and I couldn't go forward. That was fun. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. This video should be out just before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everyone. Yeah, sorry for the lack of videos. I've been busy. I went to Japan twice in the space of 3 weeks, so that's probably part of why. But I'm back now, and I promise you, going into the new year, there's going to be a lot more videos. Because I like making videos. Please free me. At least I don't have to go back to pushing trolleys. But yeah, not much else to say, really. More videos on the way. And if you like this video, make sure to like and comment, subscribe down below, and of course, and I'm not forgetting this, I know it seems like I am, and I just forgot it, but I did not forget it, I swear. Thank you so much to the channel members and the Patreons, as per usual. That, of course, being Flapjack, 8th Heretic, Vested Voice, Pewter Hailstorm, Will Provine, Rasalki Ryler, Idenios Kiofer, Andrew Sherman, Ellie Kitty, Ice Bear Ray, Sign Up King, Vinicus Franca, Soul Proximity, Mahara Project, Crit Croc, Ash Crowing, A Brick Wall, and Roxano. Thank you all so much for the support, and if you would also like your name read here, it seems like no one ever does, you know how to get it. And there might be more on the Patreon and stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I live a very vibe-based life. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.